Not everyone fears chaos. Some people feel most alive inside it. The tension, the unpredictability, the sudden shifts in tone, the emotional spikes. It feels intense, and intensity feels like vitality. When something is unstable, your senses sharpen, your attention narrows, your body mobilizes, your mind becomes alert. There is urgency, and urgency can be mistaken for meaning. The racing heart, the constant anticipation, the need to decode subtle changes. All of it creates stimulation. Stimulation is often interpreted as aliveness, because calm feels quieter, less dramatic, less consuming. If your system was shaped in unpredictability, stability may not feel natural. It may feel flat, or worse, empty. When intensity has been your baseline, peace does not register as safety. It registers as absence. Absence of adrenaline, absence of hyperfocus, absence of constant evaluation. And that absence can feel unsettling because your system equates movement with life. Chaos produces movement. Arguments, emotional swings, sudden reconciliations, unexpected ruptures. Each shift reactivates the system. And reactivation feels familiar. Familiarity feels grounding, even if it is destabilizing. This is the subtle attachment, not to suffering itself, but to intensity. Intensity compresses attention. It pulls you fully into the present moment. It eliminates boredom. It eliminates neutrality. It eliminates stillness. Stillness can feel foreign if your early experiences were charged, if connection required vigilance, if affection came unpredictably, if peace was temporary. Your nervous system learned to expect fluctuation, and fluctuation became synonymous with life. So when stability appears, something feels off. No spike, no drop, no sudden shift, just consistency. And consistency can feel dull to a system conditioned to volatility. You may call it boredom, but beneath boredom is withdrawal from activation. And withdrawal can feel like loss, because if chaos equaled aliveness, peace feels like absence. Not dangerous, just unfamiliar. Attachment to chaos does not look dramatic. It looks like restlessness when things are calm. It looks like suspicion when things are stable. It looks like stirring tension where there was none, not consciously, but reflexively. Because intensity feels like proof. Proof that something is happening. Proof that something matters. Proof that you are alive inside it. And without that proof, peace can feel strangely empty, even when it is healthy, especially when it is healthy. Attachment to chaos rarely begins in adulthood. It begins in conditioning. If unpredictability shaped your early environment, your nervous system adapted to it, not by resisting it, by calibrating to it. When affection was inconsistent, when tone shifted without warning, when approval depended on mood, your system learned to scan, to anticipate fluctuation, to detect subtle changes, to stay ready. Readiness became baseline. Hyper-attunement became normal. You did not call it stress, you called it life, because what repeats becomes familiar, and what is familiar becomes safe. Even if it is unstable, the nervous system does not categorize experience as healthy or unhealthy. It categorizes it as known or unknown. Known patterns reduce uncertainty. Unknown patterns increase vigilance. So volatility, if repeated, starts to feel predictable. Not predictable in outcome, predictable in rhythm. There will be a spike, there will be a drop, there will be repair, then another rupture. The pattern itself becomes stable, even if the moments are not. This is how unpredictability becomes bonded to connection. If love arrived inconsistently, you learned to chase it. If validation came after tension, you learned to endure the tension. Relief after chaos feels powerful. It floods the system. And that relief becomes addictive. The drop into reconciliation feels deeper because the rise was intense. Calm without rupture does not create the same contrast, so it feels weaker. Your system bonds not just to people, but to patterns of activation. High stress followed by relief, distance followed by closeness, conflict followed by reassurance. This oscillation becomes encoded. You stop associating intensity with threat. You start associating it with intimacy. If someone feels calm from the beginning, consistent, steady, your system may not register it as compelling because there is no spike, no chase, no sudden shift, no dramatic restoration. And without that rhythm, it can feel emotionally thin, even if it is secure. Conditioning does not disappear when circumstances change. Your adult environment may be stable, but your nervous system may still expect fluctuation. So when things remain calm, you search for variation. You may test, withdraw, provoke, overanalyze, not to create chaos consciously, but to restore familiar intensity. Because intensity equals engagement in your internal mapping, and engagement equals connection, even if the connection is unstable. The system prefers a known storm over unfamiliar stillness, because stillness has no historical reference. Unpredictability shaped your regulation, so unpredictability feels regulating, even when it destabilizes you externally. This is the conditioning, not attachment to suffering, attachment to activation. And activation, repeated enough, starts to feel like home. If this perspective resonates, like the video. Subscribe if you want more. No pressure, just awareness. When chaos has been your baseline, peace does not register as relief. It registers as absence. No spike, no drop, no sudden shift in tone. Just steadiness. For a nervous system conditioned to fluctuation, steadiness can feel strangely hollow. Not threatening, but empty. Activation sharpens perception. It narrows focus. It heightens sensation. It compresses attention into urgency. Peace expands attention. It widens perception. It slows tempo. It reduces intensity. And reduced intensity can feel like disconnection if intensity once equaled engagement. Without the adrenaline, there is space. And space can feel unfamiliar. In chaos, you are needed. You are alert. You are responsive. There is something to solve. Peace removes the problem. Without something to regulate, without something to decode, who are you? If your identity formed around managing instability, stability can feel disorienting. There is no role to perform, no emotional spike to track, no urgency to respond to. The system may interpret this lack of activation as flatness, boredom, restlessness, a vague sense that something is missing. But what is missing is intensity. Intensity once confirmed connection. It confirmed relevance. It confirmed movement. It confirmed that something mattered. Peace does not confirm anything. It simply exists. And existence without urgency can feel meaningless to a system wired for volatility. You may find yourself stirring tension where there is none, questioning stability, searching for hidden shifts, testing consistency. Because consistency feels too quiet. Calm relationships can feel less compelling than unstable ones, not because they lack depth, but because they lack fluctuation. Your body may interpret predictability as lack of passion. It may equate steadiness with emotional distance, because unpredictability was once intertwined with closeness. Peace asks something different of you. It asks you to tolerate stillness, to sit without urgency, to exist without solving. And that tolerance may not yet be developed, so calm feels dull or suspicious. The system begins to scan for rupture even when none is present, because rupture once meant movement, and movement felt alive. This is why peace can feel flat, not because it lacks depth, but because depth is no longer dramatized. Without emotional spikes, you must learn a different definition of aliveness. One not based on volatility, one based on presence. But presence is subtle. It does not flood the system, it does not demand reaction. It asks for regulation, and regulation at first can feel less vivid than chaos, because vividness is not the same as vitality, and without vivid spikes, peace may feel flat until your system recalibrates. If chaos has felt like aliveness, peace will not immediately feel natural. It may feel slow, muted, unremarkable. No surge of adrenaline, no emotional whiplash, no dramatic reconciliation, just consistency. Relearning regulation is not about rejecting intensity. It is about widening your range. The goal is not to eliminate activation. It is to stop requiring it. When the nervous system has been conditioned to volatility, calm feels understimulating. But understimulation is not emptiness. It is unfamiliar neutrality. Your system must learn that steadiness does not equal disconnection, that predictability does not equal boredom, that quiet does not equal absence. This recalibration takes repetition, repeated exposure to consistency, repeated experiences of safety without spikes, repeated moments where nothing dramatic happens. At first, the body resists. It searches for variation. It anticipates rupture. It prepares for fluctuation. But when rupture does not come, something subtle shifts. The system begins to lower its guard in small increments, not dramatically, gradually. Aliveness starts to feel different, less explosive, more grounded, less urgent, more present. Presence does not spike, it sustains, and sustained experience can feel deeper than intensity once your system adjusts. You begin to notice that peace is not flat. It is stable. It allows attention to expand instead of narrow. There is space for nuance, for subtlety, for steady connection, without the crash that follows a surge. The attachment to chaos weakens not because chaos disappears, but because it is no longer required for you to feel alive. Aliveness becomes less about reaction and more about regulation. This shift is quiet. It does not feel dramatic. It does not announce itself. But over time, restlessness decreases. Suspicion softens. The need to provoke intensity fades. And you realize something subtle. Peace was never empty. Your system simply did not recognize it. If this helped you observe something internal more clearly, consider liking the video and subscribing. Not for intensity, for awareness.